Meeting of call the regular town council meeting of Tuesday, March 1st, 2022 to order. The first thing is roll call.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Michael,
Here.
Lauren,
Here.
Roman,
Here.
Nicholas,
Yes.
Steve.
Here.
Sorry, I hit mute. Mayor Janet.
Here. Okay. Do we have anybody here for public comment tonight? Not seeing any hands or hearing any comments back, so I'm going to take that as a no. And we didn't have any correspondence, so the next thing is the approval of the minutes of the February 15th, 2022 minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes to those minutes?
This is Nicholas.
Go ahead, Nate.
This is Nicholas. I move to approve the February 15th, 2022 regular town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Tiffany?
Steve,
Yes.
Nicholas,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Mayor Janet.
Yes. Moving on to business, the first report is from the Crested Butte Music Festival from the summer 2021 admissions tax report. Jeff Moffitt is here to do that.
Yes, hello, everyone, and thank you for the support, and I'll look forward to the opportunity to review last season with you. And quickly, if you're not aware, the Crested Butte Titan hockey team is in the state quarterfinal playoffs, and the puck drops at 7 o'clock tonight. So when you're done with this meeting, tune into Crested Butte Titan Athletics Facebook page, and you can watch the game live in the comfort of your own home. And I don't, with Marissa, I would just like to thank you again for your support over the years, not only with the admission tax support, which we've used for public relations and marketing, but also for the wonderful venue, the violin and piano performance in the garden. We called it Violin and Piano in the Garden. Last end of July 26th was an absolutely beautiful day. It sold out, and in our minds, that's the music festival experience we're always shooting for. And I know this year we're already talking with Rebecca, Marissa, and CBMR about expanding opportunities to work with the mountain and the town of Mount Crested Butte. So happy to answer any questions about the report, as well as the supplemental report you have in your packet.
Does anybody have any questions for Jeff? Oh, I see a hand, Roman. I see these little hands now.
Thanks, Jeff. I just had a quick question of the survey respondents, how many people that represented, and if I missed that, I'm sorry. I saw the percentages, but I didn't know what it was a percentage of.
Yeah, the sample size was just under 100, 92, 93, if I'm remembering correctly. And that, not to get technical, but the total population would be of all the tickets sold. So, the 1900 figure, I think it was. So, about a 5% sample, I'd say, that compares to the night news poll you see in election season in terms of, percent. Obviously, there's a margin of error with any statistical sampling or polling that I haven't calculated, but I could. It's probably plus or minus 3 or 4%.
Thanks.
I found thank you, Marissa, for the follow-up questions to their reports. I found those helpful bits of information as I read through those. Anybody else have any questions for Jeff? Okay,
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for
Yeah,
your support.
thank
If there's no more questions, I'll sign off and I'm gonna go get my seat in Dobson Arena here and cheer on the Titans.
okay.
Go Tigers.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Okay, the next report is from Adaptive Sports Center, Summer 2021 Admissions Tax Report. Stacy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the support that you guys have given us in the past. And it's really gone a long way for us to be able to do outreach to individual participants. Summer 2021 was a vast improvement over 2020, as you can imagine. The pre-pandemic numbers of 2019, we were still down 34% from pre-COVID numbers. So we're still feeling the effects of it. Even this winter, we've had cancellations, but it's getting better. And we are really seeing a lot more individuals participate with us. And I think a lot of that is just getting the word out and showing up in some of these key markets through digital marketing and print advertising. So thank you for the funds to do that.
Are there any questions for Stacy? I had one, and that was in regards to, it seems like there's a little more focus on the individual rather than the group. Do y'all anticipate going back to trying to seek out the group market at some point soon, now that COVID seems to, hopefully, knock on wood, be getting a little bit more under control?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, obviously, we've had the groups where we were seeing a lot of cancellations just because it was unrelated people staying in our lodge. With groups, we don't need to do much for that business. Traditionally, we've been booked out for full capacity. We kind of have a capacity issue of how many people we can house in the new Kelsey Wright building. And then we also have our lodge down in town on Gothic. And we really haven't had a problem. Like pre-COVID, we were booked out at both places all winter long. So I think with groups, our philosophy is more just to keep some new leads in the pipeline. We did have Lakeshore from Alabama came out and visited us as part of this grant. And 2 physical therapists were able to join and see the facility. And then they go and take that back to people who might plan a trip or individual patients who might come and visit us. So it's just, the individuals just takes more marketing than the groups have. And in the old building, we didn't have the capacity to have as many individuals. So that was kind of one thing that Kelsey Wright really increased capacity for, and we're trying to fill her up.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Stacy? Well, another good report, and sounds like another successful year. So, keep up the good work. I enjoy watching out my window at what's going on next door. And we'll see you, I assume, for winter.
Yeah, we're gearing up. First, we're actually gearing up for next summer. So,
Okay.
yep. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks, Stacy. Okay, next report is from the Downtown Development Authority, an annual update from Gary Kaiser.
Good evening. I know that Mike and Roman give you regular reports. I assume they do on what DDA is doing, but I thought it'd be helpful just to give you kind of a summary of where we are. And the material that Tiffany sent out, really an outline, so I just want to highlight a few things. The DDA is a special financing district set up under the laws and statutes of the state of Colorado. It was approved in 1996. And it basically, the DDA geographic area is basically the base area. And Tiffany included a map. I don't know if you can follow that. The funny little box on the top of the map is the fire department. And that was before my time, but I assume they annexed the DDA area to include the fire department so that they could buy the fire truck, the aerial truck that was purchased several years ago. That's kind of funny little thing up there that they did. Then the right side is a Forest Service, and the left side is Marcelina until it gets to the private homes, and it drops down and covers the villas and the undeveloped part of the villas up on top of it. And that's really the sort of the base area, and that's really relevant to the rest of my comments. The DDA is a TIF, which is a tax increment financing district. And what that means is that property taxes go to all property taxes in the DDA geographic area, go to the DDA in excess of the base amount at the time it was authorized. So in year one, very little revenue came in. It took a few years to start building it up. The idea being that as investments are made in the base area, taxes go up, and that additional revenue then comes with the DDA to reinvest back into the DDA geographic area. We also get 1/4 of the town's sales taxes from the DDA geographic area. So the towns gets 1% sales tax, 1/4 of that goes to the DDA. And that is also over a base. The DDA is run by a board, which is appointed by you. We have 7 members, including Mike and Roman. And the DDA funds are to be used for capital projects within the DDA geographic area. Some of the major projects are listed here. The purchase of Insight 2, TC1, also known as a Rasta lot. That was over $1 million. It paid for half the cost of the plans for the Performing Arts Center. The biggest project ever done was the Lodge at Mountaineer Square, the infrastructure under that, the dewatering and the Gothic Road improvements, which is almost $2.5 million. We provided $2 million to Adaptive, which kind of put them over the top for being able to move forward with construction. And we paid $1 million for the Nordic parking property. I might add, and then we also paid another $900,000 for the improvements to TC1, which was the paving and the restrooms and the stairs that go down to Treasury. I might point out that DDA doesn't own anything. The DDA pays for something that belongs to the town, like that lot. In 21, we finished up some of these other projects, and I include the amounts above. We did pay for the wayfinding consultants, which was $25,000 to come up with that plan. And we paid $11,000 for CNL building plans. We have 2 commitments right now. The middle mile broadband, which is the optic fiber coming from Gunnison to Mount Crested Butte, primarily paid for with a grant, which requires matching funds. And so the DDA pledged $75,000 towards that fiber. The town of Crested Butte also contributed, pledged $75,000, and a number of other entities to make the match that was required. And then we also voted to approve 90,000, it was really 100 at the time, but 90,000 left for the CNL. CNL is a carrier neutral location. That's the end of the optic fiber coming into Mount Crested Butte. So that will be a building or in a building somewhere. And that will be the terminus, and that will be where ISPs can hook on to that fiber coming through. So it's very important. And we have $2.3 million in cash right now, or did at year end. Haven't anticipating the master plan. We really haven't spent a lot of money lately. We're taking in about $1.1 million in property taxes and 40,000 in sales taxes. That's our budget for 2022. Anticipate projects coming out of the master plan. In order to do any kind of building in the base area, which is the DDA geographic area, it's going to take some infrastructure and some costs associated with that. The town has some, as you all know, limited funds, so DDA is going to be hopefully a good source to help jumpstart some of those projects and pay for the infrastructure required to get some things going. So that's what we're anticipating coming out of the master plan in the next couple of years. The DDA sunsets in 2026. The law allows extension for 20 years. Takes approval of the DDA board and the town council. You do not have to go back to the residents for a vote. The revenues do go down after extension. The base rolls forward for 10 years from 1995 base to 2005. So the building that was done in that first 10 years, which the property taxes are coming to DDA now, that would be lost, and we only receive the revenue from 2005 forward with the new base. Likewise, the sales tax. And then after 10 years, the last 10 years of life, the base rolls forward 1 year every year. So the revenue will continue to fall as it goes forward, but it's still a pretty significant dollar amount coming in. So one piece of additional information, I anticipate that the DDA board will be addressing the potential extension over the next short-term period. And if that's approved, we'll come to the council to get your approval. So those taxes, those property taxes that go to the DDA would otherwise go to other taxing districts. So just so FYI, you can probably imagine just from looking at your own tax bill that the school district gets the most money out of taxes, property taxes. So that's about 35% of every dollar goes to the school district. 18% goes to the county. 14% goes to the fire department, and 13% to the town. So if the DDA went away, the town would get a slight bump in property taxes and of course in sales taxes as well. Any questions?
Have y'all discussed yet any extension of support to the wayfinding project?
We have briefly discussed that the board is willing to fund some of the actual construction, but we're waiting for staff to come back. First of all, you got CBMR, you got the DDA, and you got the town, 3 different players in what would be done with that. And our meeting next Monday, we're going to get the final wayfaring report from the consultants. We've been briefed on it, but we haven't had the final report. So we'll get that, and then we'll be waiting for the town, who I think is already working on figuring out, phase 1 and then where it fits and what part goes to whom. And CBMR has been reluctant to make any kind of comments so far. So we really need their input to see what they're going to do. They want to participate, but we don't know to exactly what extent. There's some obvious things that need to be done. First, there's some signs that are falling down that need to be replaced. And then the main signage on the road would be the number 1 priority. So I would hope we could actually have some construction next year once we kind of figure out that phase 1 plan.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody else have any questions for Gary on the DDA? Roman?
Thanks, Gary. It's great working with you in the ways that I do. Just a point of clarification, CBMR's reluctance from a commitment was just waiting to see what their anticipated cost would be just because some of the studies done to date just didn't include everything, partially because that's just a big undertaking. And it sounds like they, of course, want to be involved. They just have no idea what their financial commitment would be.
And we do have part of the report, which I'm sure the council will see as well, is going to be the cost of the various signs, how many signs, where they go, and what the cost of each one is. So we'll have a pretty good estimated cost. So we'll have a pretty good idea what those commitments are.
Is the meeting next Monday going to be one of the open meet or the joint meetings with council like the last couple have been on the
We have
reports
a
from them?
4:30 is a workshop to go over the final report before the
Okay.
6 o'clock meeting. And of course, like the council, all our meetings are open. I don't know if it's formally a joint meeting or not. I don't recall that.
Okay,
I haven't seen the agenda. Tiffany might know. She's still there? Tiffany?
Yes, I'm here. I don't think we currently have it set as a joint work session. It's just set as a work session.
okay,
But I can reach out with Gary and Isa to see if we want to make that a joint session.
okay.
We can certainly invite them.
Yes, we can always invite you guys, so you can know about it and listen into it.
Okay. Because they've been very interesting meetings so far. I've learned a lot about the whole program by participating in those. So I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to listen in. Are there any other questions for Gary?
I might just say, just on that point, we're going to be talking about town logo. The town actually extended the contract with the consultants to come up with some logo recommendations. So that's going to be part of it. So all the more
Okay.
reason that we ought to have the planning commission invited.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Gary, for coming tonight and giving us the report.
Thank you, Gary.
Bye.
Okay,
I'll listen to Jeremy.
okay. And we're moving on to that with the Mountain Express annual report from Jeremy Herzog.
Thank you, Janet. I appreciate it. Do you mind, Tiffany, extending me the screen share?
Or if you want, I'll just pull it up if you're okay
Sure.
with that.
Yep, absolutely. That's great. So thanks everybody for having me tonight. I appreciate it and your continued support of Mountain Express. I'll try to make this really brief just because you obviously all have the packet report in your packet, plus for Dwayne and Gary and Roman. They're probably tired of seeing these same pictures from me. But anyway, I'll share two things tonight. First, just an operational review of Mountain Express in the last year. One of the conditions of our IGA, which is our intergovernmental agreement between the towns of Crested Butte and Mount Crested Butte, is that we share an annual report. So I just wanted to briefly share some of the outcomes that we had for the year 2021. As you can see here from the report, the riders were 435,000, which is down from our pre-COVID days. In a typical year, it's about 750,000 passengers a year for Mountain Express. So definitely last year's ski season and the reduced capacity and willingness of people to ride transit certainly impacted our numbers. The good news is, starting with the December snowstorm, we are starting to see our numbers come back. And so I hope, as per Janet's previous comments about the impacts of COVID being reduced, hopefully we'll continue to see our ridership numbers rebound. Next significant area to report on, certainly from a financial perspective, we're in a healthy position. Largely due to CARES Act money, we did wind up with a fairly substantial surplus this year. Typically in a given year for us, our finances are pretty tight. So this is definitely a one-time surplus, and we certainly expect to go back to normal finances with this year. Again, with our finances being limited, we're being pretty smart and trying to put this money away for some of our key priorities that you'll see on the next slide. We did have one accident this year, although no injuries and nothing major to report. And we did continue to have a certain number of incidents, primarily focused around conflicts with COVID, masks and all that fun stuff. Next slide, please, Tiffany. Thank you. So just to touch on some anecdotal updates, again, COVID, the good and the bad. I already alluded to our surplus, which is exciting. Second of all, I also think it's exciting. I think as an organization, we were definitely stressed and we learned some things about ourselves. And so I think moving forward, the experience of working through a pandemic is going to make us a stronger public transit organization. But as I alluded to, obviously our ridership outcomes are still being impacted. As I mentioned before, we have that one-time surplus from this year, which we're really excited about. And we're going to use that for our long-term priorities that you'll see here shortly in the strategic plan, which includes staff retention, our new facility, and hopefully a move to zero emission vehicles. As this group is well aware, and again, we appreciate your support, the increase in our admissions tax from Mount Crested Butte was greatly appreciated, and that will be very helpful for us in achieving some of our long-term priorities. Another major accomplishment for Mountain Express this year is we did take over the late night taxi as the contracting agent. Alpine Express still runs it, and we're currently in contract negotiations. The contract expires on May 1st, and we're hoping to make some improvements to the service for 2022 and 2023. And then the final anecdotal update to share, and you'll see pieces of it here shortly. Mountain Express did adopt its first 5-year strategic plan this year that I wrote this summer, and with some very helpful insight from our board members and your town councilors has been refined. And that strategic plan is something that we will be updating on an annual basis, taking note of the progress we've made, but also the challenges that we still have to tackle ahead of us. So I'll take a quick pause here before we get into the actual strategic plan. Were there any questions on operations from this past year?
Nicholas.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I just had a question about what you just mentioned. What improvements do you envision for the late night taxi?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, we're trying to move the service to 365 days a year. It currently operates only 300 days a year. So there's times of the year where it runs 7 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week, and sometimes not at all. And just in order to make it easier for our patrons to be able to predict, we're going to try to move that to 365 days a year. We also are asking for improvements to their vehicle, improvements to the marketing outputs that they create to make it easier to publicize the service. And then the other win there is that Mary at the Talk of the Town has agreed to come on board as a business advisor to that service. And so I expect that she will be very helpful for some of the public outreach and other things that we expect to do with those aforementioned improvements.
Cool. Thank you, Jeremy.
Are there any other questions for him at this point?
Can I make a comment?
Sure, Gary.
The statistics from the late night taxi show the vast majority of the riders are coming to Mount Crested Butte.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I would say it's about 80% of the ridership is being brought up to Mount Crested Butte, the remaining 20% being distributed through unincorporated Gunnison County with Buckhorn, CB South, and the like.
Okay, Lauren.
Did you end up having a lot of dogs on the bus after allowing them this year?
Yeah, great question as well. We wound up with, I would say, 2 to 3 dogs a day was our average. We definitely saw an uptick throughout the fall as I think the word got out and people got accustomed to the policy requirements with the registration, the muzzles and whatnot. And we do expect to do some more public outreach before this summer as well, just to remind everybody that that's an option that's available to them and what the requirements of the program are. And I hope that we continue to see adoption. Most importantly, I'm happy to report that we haven't had any issues. There's been no fights, no accidents, none of that. So I think as per your comment in this meeting last year, Lauren, the intoxicated people on the last bus continue to be more of a problem than the dogs.
That's to be expected.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you saw in the chat that Hillary said that her dog loves taking the bus.
That's great. Thank you, Hillary. Cool. So without any further ado, I'll go into the strategic plan real quickly as well. Again, I'll try and go through this pretty quickly here. So about a year into my tenure with Mountain Express, especially coming from the outside, I wanted to use my fresh perspective to provide not just an assessment of Mountain Express, but where I see us going in the next 5 years. The next rough 10 slides that you'll see here is certainly an abbreviated version of it, but hopefully it's the major highlights to just kind of share my thinking with this council. Next slide, please. Thank you. So from a vision statement perspective, it's obviously no surprise to anybody in this room who on a every other 2-week basis, we're talking about some of the real important issues in our community. But it's really no surprise to you that I think we're really at a crossroads as a community, and I'm really excited about what Mountain Express can do to be a helpful partner to really resolve some of the challenges that we see today. Next slide, please. So moving forward, I've really focused Mountain Express's efforts in the next 5 years really on 3 really key strategic goals that I think really come together quite nicely to form a full picture. So first and foremost, everything we do is going to be about being the convenient transit option for the increasing number of local residents and visitors as well. The next thing is I really want to see us being the agent actively working to mitigate climate change in our community, which is certainly a really important topic at the moment. And then finally, the third piece, which is a bit more amorphous, but I think obviously with the following pictures, it'll kind of come together. I see Mountain Express as really being a key entity in our community that helps connect everyone to Crested Butte's authentic sense of place. And when I say everyone, I mean our local residents that are full-time, our part-time residents as well, our visitors. I think we can do something special. So next slide, please. So kind of what I mean by our authentic sense of place. We obviously are in this beautiful, majestic environment. And currently we have a 2-lane road, which just really creates, quite an aesthetic for us. And I think in order to preserve that, there's really a lot that we can do. First of all, just from an experience perspective, when you get on the bus, you're happy, you're smiling, you hear KBUT on the radio, you see our businesses advertised, you maybe see the artist who painted the bus. If you're on the dog bus, you might see the paws of the dogs in the community. I think getting on Mountain Express is a very community-oriented experience, whereas we all know what it's like when we're in our cars, stuck in traffic, angry, right? That's what we want to avoid. So I think in order to preserve that sense of place, getting people on the bus can be really powerful. Next slide, please. In terms of things that we can do in the next 5 years, I want to see us grow a lot. I really want to see us do some new and exciting things. So these are ideas that I have. We may do all these, we may do none of these, but I think it's important that we aspire to them and look to how we might be able to accomplish them. So I think looking at how we get bus service out to our trailheads is really critical. Moving forward, I see us potentially doing a transit center that really helps to connect a lot of our different mobility services that we hope to have in the future as well. A key part of any transit center, in my opinion, would be key pedestrian and bike-friendly orientation as well. And I'd love to see Mountain Express perhaps even administering a shared bike program and moving beyond just the bus as a mobility technology to other types of ways that people want to get around. The picture in the lower left there, that's a trolley, depending what happens with downtown Mount Crested Butte and with downtown Crested Butte as well. I see us perhaps reimagining the vehicles that we use to be more appropriate to the newly defined spaces and how we can get people around. And then a final idea that I have that I wasn't successful in getting ready for the summer, but I do have some broad-based coalition around it. And I'm really excited to potentially introduce a new revised Gothic shuttle that's a bit more mountain bike friendly and really go after that sector of our user base in order to grow our transit in corridors like that. Next slide, please. So those are just some broad-based ideas. And I know, again, every other week, people are probably coming to you guys with some pretty pie in the sky ideas. So I think it's important too, just to lay out a future that is based in a schedule as well. And so now we've kind of got a roadmap that's coming up. Next slide, please. So really, in order to achieve the goals that I talked about, convenient transit option, mitigating climate change, preserving our sense of place, I really see us focusing on 4 very specific areas. First and foremost is service improvement and expansion. How can we increase our bus ridership and our measured impact? The next thing is this group is aware we are currently in the process of building a new facility outside of town. And that really has 2 key objectives for us. One, it allows us to grow. we're capped in our current space. And then two, it'll allow us to bring in some of these green bus technologies that we're currently exploring as well. The third thing that I see us doing is, again, focusing on our fleet emissions. And even though it's a very powerful thing to get 40 people out of their vehicles and onto a bus, that immediately helps with carbon impact. It would be even greater impact if that bus itself was being powered by a greener technology. And then finally, our organization. Since 2007, Mountain Express has not hired additional office staff. We haven't changed our organization, but yet our driver and supervisor pool has tripled. And so in order for us to grow as an organization, we just have to do a little bit of internal housekeeping as well. Next slide, please. Here's just a brief example of what that 5-year roadmap looks like. I won't get into the individual chevrons, as those are somewhat fluid, but first and foremost, after the Crested Butte master planning exercise completes, as well as the community compass being accomplished by the town of Crested Butte, we will embark on a 5-year transit plan later this year as well. And I hope the fruit of that will be a lot of great suggestions on how we can improve our services. The Whetstone facility, we've already got a high-level plan in place. We intend to apply for further grant funding this spring to move us to the next stage. And I expect us to move into this facility sometime in 2024 or 2025. From a fleet conversion perspective, I actually recently just was appointed as the chairman for the transit EV sector here in Colorado. And so I'm learning literally every single day about the status of green buses in our country and in mountain towns like ours. And at this point, I don't think the technology is there, but I imagine about the same time we move into that building in 2024, 2025, you might see our either first electric bus or a hydrogen fuel cell bus is another option as well. And then finally, we have some things that we need to do just internally to facilitate all the growth that I've talked about. Okay, great. So that's the short and dirty version of the strategic plan. It's been in place for 6 months, so I just wanted to share some of the progress that we've already made consistent with our goals in the strategic plan. These are just some immediate to-dos. I don't think we need to get into those. It's pretty obvious. Next slide, please. And then finally, here's just a progress report. So we've already talked about the dogs on the buses. I think that went really well. Other things that we've been trying to do is kind of an espousal of our strategy. Some of you may have ridden Elf Bus this winter. I thought that was a great success. A lot of the kids in the community really liked it. And I actually met with the decorator last week, and we've got plans in place to do the Elf Bus even bigger and better for next holiday season. Next, there's a picture of one of our ambassadors up there. The ambassador role was something we introduced because of the operational challenges during COVID, but I think it's actually been a fantastic program. And so we will be continuing our ambassador role moving forward as just another way to help connect us with our customers. On the left there, you see the Let's Ride the Bus image. We're currently working on a children's workbook that children can, it'll be about a 10-page book that children can take, and there'll be various activities that they can do while they're riding the bus. The whole goal is really just to ingratiate that next generation of bus riders. And once they complete that workbook, they will get a little pin that says Junior Bus Driver that'll look just like the pins that the Mountain Express bus drivers wear. In the lower right-hand corner there is a picture of the image from the Crested Butte Community Compass. And of course, we've been equally involved, although just a little bit more recently, in the town of Mount Crested Butte's master planning process as well. And moving forward, we look to be a better partner when it comes to planning and strategizing about the future. And then finally there's an image from an international conference that I went to with regards to zero emission vehicles. Heard some great presentations from my peers in India, Indonesia, Europe, and then across the United States as well. And so again, that continued learning will be one of our focuses for Mountain Express, so we can figure out when's the right time and the best technology to introduce zero emission vehicles to Crested Butte and Mount Crested Butte. Cool. Well, hopefully I've talked enough, but not too long. At this point, I'll open it up to any questions or comments.
Any questions for Jeremy? Good report, really good information. I see Steve's and then Nicholas.
Thanks, Jeremy. Really quick, the development out at Whetstone, are you guys developing charging station or, whatever the future technology for fueling will be? Are you guys adding that into your original build out, or is that going to piecemeal as you start to develop or want to assume those technologies?
Yeah, great question, Steve. At this point, we are moving ahead and assuming that we scope for both technologies, so both electric charging as well as the venting requirements for hydrogen and fuel cell buses as well. The original scope would include just the conduit for the electricity. And then depending where we're at in terms of choosing a particular horse in that race, we may or may not invest in the actual charging technology itself. But one of the most important objectives, that's been the objective from the beginning, and thanks to Gary and Dwayne and Roman as well for leading that charge, is that this facility is expected to be a future-proof 50-year facility that has the foundational elements for whatever green technology is our chosen path.
Nicholas?
Thank you again, Jeremy. I just wanted to acknowledge, what you mentioned about riding the bus and being part of the community. That's something that I myself feel when I ride the bus. So I appreciate that. And I just wanted to also say that I thought your bit on aspirational ideas, that those are very exciting. And so I hope you'll update us on those as they progress. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Are there any other questions for Jeremy? He answered my questions about the electric buses. Okay. Looks like we're good, Jeremy.
Okay. Thank you
All
very
right.
much for the
Thank you
time
so
and
much.
opportunity. Have a great night.
Good report. Okay. Moving on to ordinance number 1, series 2022, an ordinance of the town council of the town of Mount Crested Butte, Colorado, amending chapter 21 zoning, article 1 in general, section 21-1 definitions, and article 3 district regulations, second reading. Leah.
Okay, so this is a second reading of ordinance 1. The first reading, town council approved in February. There's a public hearing with no public comment. I just wanted to point out that both the clean version with your recommendations from the last meeting and the original version that was presented to the Planning Commission are both in your packet. There were some concerns raised by the Planning Commission about the 8,500 cap being put back in. So we just wanted to make sure that there was full transparency with that piece specifically. And then one other item that's incorporated into this ordinance is a 200 square foot range for the ADU and single family residence requirements. So at the last meeting, you had approved the 1,000 square foot, both for ADUs and for single family residences, so that the ADU could be potentially built first, which kind of corners in an applicant into a design predicament with designing a perfect ADU at exactly 1,000 square feet. So staff has included that 200 square foot wiggle room and bumped up the ADU maximum to 1,200 square feet. And I guess that's my recap. Do you have any questions or
Dwayne?
discussion items?
Yeah, I'm curious on the ADU, the increase in the ADU square footage. If someone has an existing ADU, could they pull permit to increase the size of their ADU?
Yeah, they would still have to meet the 1/3 portion. So 1,200 would be the maximum, but if your regular house size is smaller, then the maximum ADU size can still only be 1/3 of your total GRFA. So that might be less than 1,200. But
So But if you had a 3,600 square foot or larger home, you could go to 1,200?
Yes.
Okay. Not like I plan on doing it, but just curious.
There any other questions for Leah?
Move to approve ordinance number 1, series 2022, amending chapter 21 zoning, article 1 in general, section 21-1 definitions, and article 3 district regulations, second reading.
Second,
Lauren, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just had a question for Leah. You mentioned that planning commission had concerns that about the 8,500 square feet. Was that we set the maximum to be 8,500?
Yeah, so the maximum is 8,500 or 25% of the lot area, whichever is less. And, you know, they felt that it could be seen as taking away from their current existing property rights. So they just wanted to, you know, have more clarity on how that was in the original ordinance. They took it out and then town council had put it back in. So
yeah, their concern kind of stemmed from they took it out as part of their deliberation. So when we presented the ordinance to the council, it didn't have it. It wasn't in there. So there was just concern that people from the public might not have known that that was a topic that was going to be discussed, even though it was mentioned in the staff report. So it was just a concern from the planning commission in that, you know, it wasn't in the ordinance presented to the council, and it was put back in, and that it might not have been known to the public. So that was their real concern, and why we made a note of that in the staff report.
Okay, so it wasn't with the ordinance itself, just the, okay. I see.
Not aside from the fact that it was in there originally when we presented it to them, and their recommendation was to remove it. And so when we presented that recommendation to the council, it was already removed from the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Kathy, you had something, and then I'll go to Roman.
Yeah, so if you guys are gonna change the minimum square footage on the ADUs to address that conundrum that Leah was discussing, you're approving this as amended. So we would just have to make that change to the motion, because that affects, you know, it's different from first reading to now if you're gonna adopt that. So, you know, depending on what you guys decide, you might have to amend that motion.
Okay. We'll keep going with discussion and then we'll come back to that. Okay, Roman.
Thanks. Carlos, do you recommend, or Kathy recommend a way to sort of maybe more clearly present this change to the public, or is due diligence been done? I see the planning commission's maybe concerned that somebody didn't think it was going to be in there, and then it got like popped in there. And then the other side of that is, does the planning commission have an opinion on maximum square footage, or is it just you can vacate 8 lot lines and build a 30,000 square foot house?
I can't address the planning commission opinion, Roman, but we talked about the public notice component quite a bit on this, you know, just making sure that the public could be aware of it. We talked about doing a second public hearing and just determined that, you know, making sure that it was in the staff report, making sure that it was discussed during this public process tonight, you know, just highlighting it so that if people were interested in having a say on that, that you guys would have the opportunity to hear from them. It doesn't appear that anyone has come to the table in that regard. And correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos, but I think during our discussions, also it didn't draw a lot of public input, if any, at the planning commission level either. So I think we've covered our bases as far as procedure is concerned. but if you guys feel that it deserves another, go around in some fashion, certainly it doesn't hurt to make an attempt at public input.
Thanks. And then either Carlos Delira, could you chime in on a planning commission's opinion on a maximum if they have one?
Well, I can to the extent that I'm able, which won't be adding anything new to the conversation. Obviously, I can't speak for the planning commission, so all I can do is refer to the recommendation that they made on the ordinance. We presented the original ordinance we presented to the planning commission had the language of an 8,500 square foot cap in it. And through their deliberations and as part of their recommendation, they removed it. They did not want a cap for square footage. So that's when you refer to lot line vacations, that cap's already built in to lot line vacations. So if someone vacates a lot line as part of that process in the town code, it limits the maximum to 8,500 square feet or 25% of the total lot area, whichever is less. So that's not a concern, but yeah, in their decision, and it was reflected in their recommendation that they did not want a cap for maximum square footage in single family residential.
Dwayne.
I'm looking for clarification here. So the 8,500 square foot language was not in the first reading, but now it is in the second reading.
I believe that's correct. The ordinance that was presented to you at first reading had the square footage cap for single family residential of 80, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Leah, of 8,500. We removed that from the ordinance that was presented to you at first reading. With your approval of first reading, you determined to put it back in. So the ordinance that is before you now has it included. So the dialogue with the planning commission is the original ordinance presented to the planning commission that they based their recommendation on had the 8,500 square foot cap in it. So first for planning commission, it was in. First reading town council, it was out. And here we are at second reading with town council and it's back in.
And they did not come back to us and say they really thought we should take it out.
No, I just, at our planning commission meeting as part of, other business at the end of the meeting, I just updated them of the, how the meeting the night before went. And I mentioned that you put that back in, and the concern was really just around the noticing part of it. And so we had multiple conversations with Kathy about that, just making sure that we were, covered there, and we determined that we were. And we also let the planning commission know. So if the planning commission knew of anybody that wanted to speak out, that they would have been afforded the opportunity to do so at tonight's meeting. And, here we are, and nobody came to speak.
Okay. Dwayne, then Roman, then Nicholas.
I just neglected to.
Oh, okay. All right, Roman.
Thanks. The 1,200 square foot number, I know it's in the report, and Leah, you did talk about it, but can you repackage the reasoning for raising that back up to 1,200? Because I thought we stepped it down to 1,000. I guess why is a single family home of 1,000 square feet not acceptable, but an ADU of 1,200 square feet is? Was it the conversation that we had of like ratio of sizes of things next to one another? Like if you put 1,000 square foot home next to a 2,000 square foot home adjacent, it would look weird or something?
So basically where we started at first reading was the minimum square foot for a single family home was 1,200 square feet, and a maximum for the ADU was 1,000 square feet. So essentially you wouldn't be able to build the ADU first. We have quite a few applicants coming in now that want to build that ADU first, just to be more affordable, which Lauren brought up making those numbers match so that you're able to build the ADU first. But the predicament is the maximum and minimum ended up both being 1,000. So you are cornered in to building exactly 1,000 square feet, which is why we wanted to give that wiggle room so you could have 1,000 square feet as your dwelling minimum, and then the 1,200 cap for the ADU. So you have that room to build that ADU first.
So last time we made it even, and this, we're taking it back to splitting it to be different.
But in the opposite direction. Yeah.
It's just so they
Or
don't
in the
have to
opposite
exactly
direction.
hit that number, which is probably not maybe the easiest.
So we wouldn't have been able to accept a 999 or 1,001 square foot house, which gets tricky.
Thank you.
Nicholas.
Thank you, Leah and Carlos. So Roman sort of asked the question if there's anything else we need to do from a notice standpoint. And from what I heard is that rounds were made with our council and all of that we're okay to not do that. But I guess to follow on to that, is there something we could or should do to make this more transparent, given the changes that have been made? Again, I understand that we don't have to, we're not required to, excuse me. I'm just asking if there's anything we could do to make it better, more transparent, more notice.
I mean, you always can, but it becomes tricky, because if you do it, if you go above and beyond in one situation, then you create the expectation that you're going to go above and beyond in every situation. So that's just, I've had that burn me a few times, trying to, give people a little extra notice on something's happening, and then they come back to me and I'm accused of being dishonest when all I was trying to do was give them the extra heads up. So I've learned that lesson before. So it's tricky, because you can always do more than more public outreach, but where do you draw the line, and how much is enough, and how do you determine which application is worthy of that additional outreach versus others. So it becomes a challenge. So I think, we public notice, public hearing at the Planning Commission, no one spoke. We repeated that process at first reading, no one spoke. We kind of spread the word. We didn't spread the word, but the planning commissioners that expressed the concern, we, told them, hey, we're gonna allow the comment at tonight's meeting. So if you do know anybody that's interested, have them come to speak. And so through all that, we have not had a single comment on the ordinance. So my preference would be to move forward with approval of second reading.
Thanks, Carlos, for summing that up again. I'm with you on that. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
So Steve, do you want to do this motion as with the amendment?
Yeah, I think I can just say I'd like to amend my motion to include as amended from first reading.
And second,
Okay.
And just
Can
to
we actually-
clarify, oh, sorry, Tiffany, go ahead.
I was just going to clarify for the record what you were going. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, so the ordinance is drafted for second reading. this is a clarification for Carlos and Leah, does contain the 200-foot leeway on the ADU. So we're approving the right thing.
Yeah, that's incorporated into the clean version of the ordinance presented tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Real quick, do we need to state for the record 1,200 maximum square footage for an ADU, 1,000 minimum square footage for a single family home as part of the motion?
That's in the ordinance tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Tiffany,
Lauren,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Steve,
Yep.
Nicholas,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Mayor Janet.
yes. Okay, next item is the Villas Phase 5 extension to subdivision improvement agreement. Carlos.
So, thank you, Janet, Mayor Janet. I think my staff report sums this up pretty well. It's pretty straightforward. As you recall, we entered into a new subdivision improvement agreement in late 2020. The terms of that agreement was for them to complete items identified in an engineer's assessment. The timeline associated with that was to have that finished at the end of last year. While working, through the summer building season, there were a few things they just weren't able to complete. So we need to amend and extend, maybe not amend, but extend the subdivision improvement agreement to allow them to complete the work and also provide the protection of the town that work, a surety that work gets completed. So basically what this is just an extension of the time frame for the Villas Phase 5 group to complete the remaining items that were identified in the second engineer's report that was completed at the end of last year.
Any questions for Carlos on this?
I move to approve the Villas Phase 5 extension of subdivision improvement agreement as presented to be entered into by the town of Mount Crescent Butte and Mount Crescent Butte Villas LLC.
Second.
Okay, everybody clear on the motion? Tiffany,
Nicholas,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Mayor Janet.
yes. Okay, the next thing is on virtual meetings. We agreed that we would talk about it at this meeting. My understanding is that the planning commission is extended doing virtual meetings until the middle of April. And
Well, that was their,
Claire. Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead, Carlos.
I was just gonna say that was
I
their.
was gonna say, that's their desire.
Yeah.
They're not actually in charge of that. You guys are. But they
for
would
the
like
planning
to.
commission,
Well, as far as how the town is conducting meetings, is either the
Oh.
town manager or the mayor, by virtue of that resolution. And so that's just the planning commission's preference. I think they actually said till June, but we told them
Yeah.
no.
yeah, they
on
they
that,
talked
but,
about June because a bunch of people were going to be out of town and they wanted to
Right.
be able to do the meetings from out of town
Right.
during the off season. But
Yeah, so their backup request was to continue virtual meetings through the end of the ski season. But they understand that that's something you guys will be discussing tonight, and their fate is not their own.
okay. So what are y'all's feelings and thoughts here? I see a hand up, Steve.
I think that the value of in-person meetings can't be understated. I have a deep appreciation from Roman's previous sentiment that, we need to get this technological aspect and gap filled. But I don't necessarily think this is the best spot to press for that. And to me, I prefer the in-person meetings. I think there's more nuance that is covered and there's a deeper depth of discussion. So for me, I'd like to see us resume in-person meetings on March 15th.
What about other people's feelings on this?
I'm with
Roman.
Steve. Oh,
Oh, I heard you, Lauren. Lauren's with Steve. Roman,
Yeah, I'm fine extending it through the end of the season. I would like to have a separate conversation of a vote not tied to the pandemic to have virtual meetings. I think it's just really important to have as many people have access to this as possible. And just telling people to listen on the website is I don't think really a proper response to that.
So your preference right now is to wait until ski season's over?
I'd like to extend it to the end of the ski season, but in conjunction with that, discuss a separate vote to have virtual meetings that aren't tied to the pandemic. Because we can't just extend it indefinitely because we want to have them remote, if I understood Kathy correctly the last time around.
Okay. Dwayne,
Just for clarity, the ski season's over April 3rd.
yes,
So our April 5th meeting would be our first meeting back in person.
it could be.
Uh, Yeah.
If that y'all's, I'm trying to gauge opinion here. Because as I understand from Kathy, it'll just be, I'm gauging the opinions from you guys and then Isa and I will make the decision. Is that correct, Kathy?
We as a council voted on it. I don't think that's just something that can be decided.
Yeah, I feel like this should be a council vote. This feels
Yeah,
weird.
we
that
voted
it's-
on this.
Yeah.
Kathy, can you clarify? She's freezing up on us.
Yeah, I think she's frozen. She can confirm this. The council voted on the resolution, and I believe what the resolution did was empowered the town manager or the mayor to make that decision
Right.
or decree or.
Yeah, sorry, I guess it's me that's freezing up from time to time. But yeah, the way the resolution is situated, it's manager and or mayor making the decision, so.
So I'm just
I mean, you
sending
guys-
y'all out for what y'all want to do.
Yeah, and you
Michael,
can
you had-
take a straw poll vote if you want to see where everyone stands for sure, but it won't be a binding vote in the traditional sense.
Yeah. Michael, you
did-
had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna be a little bit, I think more strict than Roman here. I think until we get the hybrid meeting figured out, there's no incentive for them to look at getting the hybrid meeting. And so I think the public participation is more important, just getting as many people as possible in. So I would say extend it for 6 months.
We can't tie it to that. We can only tie it to the pandemic.
Then I would tie it until the pandemic is officially over.
Okay. Steve,
Wow. Let's see. Yeah, it seems like we're leveraging this thing for other reasons other than the pandemic. And now we're trying to package it in certain ways to meet either personal agendas, separate commission agendas. But I don't think that was the intent of our resolution. And so for me, if we want to split hairs semantically to get outside of the intent of that, that probably needs a bigger discussion than what we're having here tonight. So for me, I still using this to leverage the technology component, particularly when no one's been on any meeting or had public comment on these Zoom meetings since we went back to them, like zero. So I'm not seeing this urge or demand from the public for this. If there was, or if people were even reaching out to us individually going like, wow, my voice isn't being heard in the community because I don't have access, but that's not the case. And we've been back on Zoom for months now with zero engagement from the public. So I'm not comfortable fully accepting that as a reason to hold off on going back in person.
okay. Nicholas, I think you had your hand up next.
Thank you, Mayor Janet. I'm really struggling with this. I definitely see both sides, and it seems like sort of the bookends are are where Steve is, and the other end of the spectrum is where Michael is. And I think there's validity to both sides. I guess one thing I wonder is if I know ISA's out and we haven't gotten an update on where we are on the IT piece of this, and I just wonder if we had some idea of that, if that would change anyone's opinion. And so I guess what I'm asking is if we could essentially extend it through the end of March until we get a better idea of when this technological piece is going to be ready to go. It might have some influence on how I voted. Curious if anyone else thinks that.
Kathy?
Legally speaking, I don't think you guys have that discretion. It's pandemic related. So it's if a quorum cannot be obtained due to an emergency or health kind of situation, I don't have the exact words in front of me, that makes having a quorum, meaning the 7 of you guys able to sit together in person, impractical or imprudent. That's the only basis for having the council appearing virtually. So even if we are able to get the hybrid meeting component going, it's not going to benefit the council in the sense of you're still going to have to sit in the council chambers in person. All that would do is allow the public to have the opportunity to zoom in, and then you can see them on the big screen, and they can see you, and they can find who else is in the room and that sort of thing. So that component of a hybrid meeting could be possible when the equipment comes online. But as far as council attendance, which is the most important part, whether you guys are the quorum, if we don't have a quorum, then we can't conduct business. So, the resolution as currently stands, it has to be related to this pandemic. It cannot be related to technology. And the other option would be, direct that we look at a resolution that allows another reason to do this virtually versus in person, but then you're really going against the Colorado Sunshine Laws, and still the prevailing thought is that council meets in person and they meet the public in person. So, we've kind of got a steep road ahead to switch from that legislative directive.
Thanks, Kathy. I understand that better now. Thank you.
Roman?
Yeah, Kathy touched on what my intent was, which is to compartmentalize these decisions, one tied to the pandemic, one tied to what our end goal is. I'd like to point out that spring break is nigh, and the reason why we are in our separate rooms now is because we had a spike in visitation that drove cases up. So we are on the cusp of having another significant wave of people visiting our community in the next 2 weeks. So, at least through the end of the season, it makes sense. I just envision, us having meetings scheduled for the first week in April, and then, Tiffany's got a bunch of stuff scheduled and cases are through the roof and we have to pivot and all that kind of stuff. And then the second part of all of this is just having the conversation for a vote to have a different resolution to allow us to keep doing this, not tied to the pandemic.
Okay. Steve?
Unmute, Steve.
I think if anybody's got pliability here, I'd be fine going out to April 3rd. I appreciate Roman's point there. So, if we got to come inward from the deep end of the spectrum, to me, end of season seems like a reasonable concession.
Okay. Dwayne?
I agree with Steve and Roman.
Okay. Carlos?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, that was part of the planning commission's, opinion was spring break was coming up, an influx of visitors from, different parts of the country, potentially different parts of the world, raising, the potential risk. So that's why they wanted to push it out to that second meeting in April, was for that. Was for the ski season, but in large part because the increase in visitors we would have from spring break, as Roman and Steve and Dwayne and others mentioned.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be, I've been listening to all y'all's comments, but my inclination was to wait till the end of the ski season and get I shouldn't phrase it like that, wait until the tourists leave. And it's just us guys, and I would feel more comfortable with that. And just as a separate aside, my understanding is that we do have consultants picked out to be doing the evaluation of our internet services. And I don't know if they've gotten any of the work done yet. Tiffany, do you know if they've done any of the work yet?
I know that at the March 15th meeting, we're going to have Evan, who's in charge of it, present a report based on the findings as well as some other information he has gathered.
At which meeting?
The next meeting.
The next meeting? Okay.
Yeah, it was too quick to get all the information together for this meeting.
Okay. So hopefully that helps some, and y'all's questions on that. I just wanted to get that out there because I knew I get that little tidbit of information I picked up somewhere in conversations. So anyway, thank you for all your input on that, and we'll look at extending, doing it this way and starting up again in person, probably at the April 5th meeting. Okay. All right, the next thing is the discussion on process for acquiring a town manager housing.
Roman has his hand up still.
Oh, I'm sorry, Roman.
Thanks. I don't know if anybody feels strongly enough to have some consensus to give Kathy direction on looking at what a subsequent resolution would be, not tied to the pandemic.
My personal thing would be, let's wait and see what Evan says to us at the next meeting.
Roman, could you clarify exactly what you're asking us to have a position on?
So basically, if we give direction to Kathy now to do some research and find out what an appropriate resolution would be that would allow us to stay in virtual meetings not tied to the pandemic, then in theory, there might be no lag between us ending our virtual meetings tied to the pandemic in a separate resolution. So
does the majority of council want that?
that's what I'm asking.
I don't want that. I'm a no for that. Can we just do a straw poll?
Yeah.
Who wants to wait until we?
I have a question.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, hold on. We already have a question in front of everyone.
I want some clarity is all I'm going for. Are we looking to be able to say one of us is out of town and, there's a meeting scheduled, that we, in order to create, assure a quorum, could attend? I see a lot of head shaking, so, no, that is not what we're trying to accomplish.
No.
No, I mean, it has to be very, very specific circumstances, even so, without the pandemic, in which someone could appear electronically or virtually and still count for a quorum and be able to vote. And that's the problem, is that it immediately becomes a slippery slope because, you know, COVID isn't easy enough. I have COVID symptoms and, you know, or I tested positive, I have to stay away, but we really don't have other things like that. So, you know, the next thing is if someone just doesn't feel, you know, good, should they not come, or should they be able to appear electronically? Or if they're going to be out of town, should they be able to appear electronically? And then all of a sudden you've completely defeated the whole purpose of the sunshine laws, which is that council meetings are held in public, in front of the public. The other thing that we really noticed with the city, just anecdotally, is if it's a hybrid meeting in the sense that some counselors aren't in the room and some are, and some people are online and some are in the room, it makes the meeting much less effective all around, and especially for the people that are online, because you can't see everyone who's in the room, and it doesn't work as well. So if it's going to be a resolution that is outside of pandemic reasons, it's still going to have to be extremely limited in order to get you guys off the, you know, the dais, so to speak, and not sitting in the council chambers in front of the public. It would be more related to, you know, what kind of proceedings could we operate with people appearing virtually as opposed to the council appearing virtually.
And it would be the same for everybody. We're either all in person or we're either all virtual.
Yes.
It wouldn't be a mixture for us.
No, it's very ineffective that way. It really doesn't work very well.
Okay, Steve.
Unmute.
Yeah, since we're super confident the technology piece is going to be firing on all cylinders here, probably in the next 6 weeks, and all problems will be solved. Kathy, can we create a resolution that would allow and create a scenario where if a counselor had tested positive for COVID, that they could then participate virtually in the interest of not spreading that to the council? Because legally they don't have to stay home. And I'm wondering, it falls under a COVID umbrella. And I would hate to see like numbers spike, somebody gets COVID and we start missing, and you lose out on a lot of major important votes. So this is more just a matter of hair splitting. I'm just wondering what your position is there.
I mean, my reaction to that is if you're sick with COVID, it's like you're sick with anything else.
Yeah, but I came to
Yeah.
council with the flu and with the cold all the time.
Great.
Thanks.
Sorry, I mean, the reality is what it is, right? You can't turn your
Well-
life off when you get sick always.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've all learned some things about, you know, maybe it's better to miss a meeting or a work day or something, but than COVID, or because of COVID. But in any event, I mean, yeah, if we want to stay specific to COVID, we could do that. It can't be any illness, you know, because again, it's the slippery slope. You know, I have a cough, maybe I'm coming down with something. I really don't want to drive up there. It's cold, it's dark. You know, I'm going to use the opportunity to be able to be virtual. But again, if we're holding a public hearing or something of that nature, you know, that's a quasi judicial proceeding. We don't know who else is in the room. We don't know who else is listening. We don't know who else is providing information. It's just, you know, and it doesn't work as well. Are you seeing and hearing the applicant or the public speaking? Are you able to get all the information and then speak with, you know, your fellow counselors as well virtually when they're all sitting in the room? It just doesn't, like, if you go on the city's meetings, you log in on Zoom, the council looks like these tiny little ants that they're pretty far away. And it might not be as bad, you know, in Mount CP because the room is smaller already, but you know, you might not as get a wide an angle either of the room. So it's just trying to make the public meetings what they're supposed to be and make them as effective as possible.
Roman.
All right, last thing I'll say about all this, I do need to clarify that I'm specifically speaking about all virtual or all in person for a subsequent resolution. I'm not talking about trying to be hybrid prematurely. And I guess, Steve, my comment or reaction to the claim that there's been really little to no public input. And look at our agendas. I mean, it's been pretty vanilla. Budget, ooh, awesome. That kind of stuff. So, once we actually start addressing STRs again, once we start seeing some stuff with the various PUDs that are churning around, I do anticipate that spiking significantly. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down on whether or not you want to have Kathy work on a resolution that would, try and address the virtual problems that we have, or if you want to go ahead and just start meeting in person and do that. Thumbs up is that you want to just start meeting in person.
I would just say that I think it's worth this is all worth a discussion and maybe Kathy doing some research or taking a stab at a draft might help. Again, I'll admit I'm really struggling. I'm almost a coin flip on this one, so I'm sorry for that.
Okay. Lauren?
And I just wanted to remind everyone that I'd say we typically receive a lot more emails than personal visits in our meetings in general. So it's not like someone has to Zoom in or show up in person to comment. People write emails all the time. So there's that avenue as well.
Okay, Kathy and I will talk about this further, see what we want to do, and maybe have a sense of where Evan is on getting us somewhere.
Really quick, can I just ask the question to be crystal clear on the context of this conversation? When we're talking about the technological component here, what we're talking about is council performing their duties in the chamber with the public's ability to engage and watch.
Yes.
No, what I'm specifically talking about is being virtual until that happens.
I know. I guess I'm talking about the broader, the piece that has been pressed to town staff without results for 4 or 5 months now is different than that. What I'm getting at is this bigger conversation we've been having that Nicholas has sort of spearheaded, by just continuously bringing it up, as well as you. So I guess that's the piece. I just want to make sure that what we're trying to accomplish here is simply in-person meetings with public accessibility and input from.
Yes,
virtual.
and we're going to have a whole lot more information on that from Evan at our next meeting.
I'm just point of clarity. Thank you.
Okay, Nicholas.
Yeah, Steve. So I see that issue of technology that gets the public able to tune in as they have when we had virtual meetings. I see that as one issue, and as you mentioned, the one that I've been banging the drum on. And then I guess I see as a separate issue the rules that we make for ourselves as council regarding attendance. And I realize technologically those are tied together, how that would all work. But I do see it as sort of two separate things. The public engagement, which I still, hope we move forward with all speed that we can. And then sort of separately, the rules that we would make for council attendance at meetings in person, not in person, so on and so forth.
Wayne.
I finally understand where Roman's coming from, and I have no problem at all, staying virtual until we get the new technology.
But what Kathy's telling us is we can't say that right now.
You really can't say it at all. That's the issue I'm trying to explain.
Next month will be good.
I think I need to repackage this. Like, I don't think that we're all talking about the same thing. We've already talked about ending virtual meetings under our current resolution because it's tied to COVID. I'm trying to push for a subsequent resolution that keeps us virtual until we have hybrid meetings available to us.
Right, and I
What
do
we are
not
trying to
think that
talk
this-
about is whether or not people even are interested in staying virtual. Doesn't matter under what resolution, but whether that's palatable for people. And from what I'm hearing is Dwayne's so, Janet's no, Lauren's no, Michael, are you still here? Nicholas on the fence, Steve, no. So,
And Kathy's telling you that it's not lawful to stay virtual when there's no reason to not be in chambers in front of the public. It can't be because we want better technology. Now, if the town hall burns down and there's no place to meet, then go virtual. But as long as there's a place physically for the council to meet and hold a meeting, that's where you guys need to be.
cool, end of conversation.
So what are you trying to say? I'm just kidding. All right, we're good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Oh, there's Dwayne. Okay. So moving on to discussion on process for acquiring town manager housing. And I've given this a whole lot of thought today. And, one of the things that I feel real strongly about in this whole situation is that we're looking at probably a minimum of 2 years before we have Homestead up and running. And so I don't think, I think we need to look at alternative options. And what I would like to do is have a committee of 2 people volunteer to find us a realtor to do, and work with them on the legwork on, finding housing that would be comparable to what they would be getting at Homestead, which Carlos, you can probably correct me on this. I believe we were going to get a 3-bedroom and it was about 1,800 square feet.
Sounds about right. Yep. 3 bedrooms for sure. And yeah, 18. That's pretty close ballpark.
So that's my proposal to you guys. Feedback is more than welcome, but that's, I think the direction we need to take because, regardless of what our situation is with, town managers, we need to do something about housing if we, because we've been pretty clear that we don't want the waiver. And so we have to figure out how we're going to find housing for someone here in Mount Crested Butte. And I don't like seeing, I know last time where, or before when we talked about this, there was discussion about us each sort of looking, and that's not really town councilors' jobs. And we've got a lot of stuff on our plate and I don't see us spending our time looking for housing. So that's why I would like to, have a couple of people volunteer to pick out a realtor and get them seeing whether it's for rent or for purchase. I'm not saying that one way or another, but just to start the process of looking. Nicholas.
Thank you, Mary Janet. I just wanted to clarify with you and Carlos, it's about the Homestead unit, 3-bedroom, about 1,800 square feet, and just wanted to add on to that. I think that place had at least a 1-car garage. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I can confirm that square footage number for you too.
Yeah, I forgot the garage. I meant to state that. Thank you, Nicholas. Dwayne.
I've already talked to my realtor, so I'll volunteer to be on the committee.
Okay, does anybody else want to be involved in working on this? I mean, if not, I will. I mean, that's. Okay, so I guess Dwayne and I will work. Oh, Roman, I see your hand up. Sorry.
That's not me volunteering. I'll be clear. That's not me volunteering. I'll be clear.
Okay.
Steve posted some things in the chat that I think we should consider, and whether or not we want to talk about that now or how we want to quantify those things. Putting a garage in there, is that limits things considerably. I know we're trying to find equality to what Homestead was, but I also think we need to be realistic. And I'd also suggest putting an ad in the paper or otherwise reaching out to the community. If we master lease an ADU or a house, that would, I would assume, offer some additional comfort to a homeowner. So I do think we need to discuss in one way or another what our desire is for a place and how we want to reach out. I don't know if we really need a real estate agent to work on our behalf as much as we probably should communicate with various rental companies that we're interested.
Well, and we may go that route too of, talking to property management companies and seeing if they've got anything that would be suitable for, because we're looking for the long term. We're looking for probably, at least a couple years of rental.
Right, but to develop a plan rather than just say we might reach out to a rental company in the future. Like what is our actual
Well, and that's why I
plan or-
suggested of trying to find something comparable to Homestead, because that's where they would have been if Homestead had worked out. And that just seems like a level of quality that we had, indicated that we were willing to provide. Steve.
Yeah, I think touching and expanding on what Roman was talking about, I think we need in this meeting to really define what the process is, what we're looking for, what the process is for information and communication. And to me, yeah, getting too deep with real estate agents and whatnot, if we put a breakdown, all we need is a one-page sort of a pitch deck on why it's best to rent or to rent to town versus anybody else. And then let's figure out, can we pay 6 months in advance? Is that not advised? Could we do a 12-month master lease plus a double security deposit? There's got to be things that leverage us better than other people out there. And I think putting together a one-pager and shopping that around, just every one of us probably have 3 real estate agent friends. So to me, a hard networked word of mouth campaign, tie in the one-page pitch, which we can volunteer somebody to make that. And then go from there. But I think
and it's not to say that each of us can't be continuing our, communications with people, but I just, want to see this moving along. And, right now I feel like it's at a standstill and, I want to get somebody looking and doing something and, having something kind of concrete maybe on our horizon, and a sooner rather than later.
I'd like to know what our budget is.
Where what?
What our budget is.
That's number 3 on my list, Dwayne. You guys want to dive in on parameters for what we're looking for and how much we can spend? Or we can schedule another meeting to talk about the parameters to then approve, whatever you guys want.
If I'm going to be searching for something, I need to know what the parameters are. So whatever input anybody can give is appreciated.
Michael.
Yeah, have we checked with the housing authority? I guess I could have, but have we checked with the housing authority if anybody has accepted the Good Deed program or is interested in the Good Deed program? Tiffany's about to
Tiffany,
say
do you
something.
know?
I'm sorry, I was reading Kathy's chat.
Oh.
What was that question?
Has anybody expressed interest in the Good Deed program in Mount Crested Butte?
Oh, that's a question for Jennifer or for Isa. That I believe the answer is no, but I'm not going to guarantee that.
Yeah, so if we could check on that. One of the other things is I have a friend that I work with, or I have a friend that lives here that actually bought a condo in what I consider under market value. He had a fabulous realtor that just wrote letters to everybody, to every homeowner. He set the parameters. There you go, Steve. Set the parameters of what he was looking for. Wrote letters to everyone, said, hey, particularly the out of town owners, are you looking to sell or looking to long-term rent? And he got a couple offers to buy places. I think he ended up getting a Timbers unit for under $400K, which is a really good deal in today's market. I think one, utilizing or checking on the Good Deed program, and then two, just seeing if we can take that aggressive approach like that, is finding, maybe it's not listed. I guess a good realtor would go ahead and do this, which council shouldn't have to do, but a good realtor could go out and find those type of things.
Okay, I'm making notes here. Steve,
I guess in having looked into a lot of this stuff, and I know a bunch of us have been looking at it over the last month or so since the waiver conversation started. I think defining a range on these parameters, 2 to 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, maybe garage, maybe not. I think we need to have a really broad umbrella here, bring in as many options as possible and then assess that. Because I think it's very possible that we might overlook something that could have been a fit because it was short on a bedroom, but it did have a garage and it had extra storage. So I think creating at least a small range would be beneficial for how we go about finding leads.
okay, that's easily done.
Agreed.
Okay, Nicholas?
I agree with Steve and Michael, and I think the way Steve has it lined out in the chat there helps me understand it and makes good sense. And so it seems like for number 3, define parameters. I agree. We could say 3-bedroom, around 1,800 square feet with a garage, but I totally agree with you, Steve. If we found a 2-bedroom that was really spacious and had something else, then that's something that we should absolutely consider. I think number 4, hopefully we can all sort of keep our ears open to things that come along. And then I guess my only other modification, Steve, to what you wrote in the chat is I would just sort of do 1 and 2 concurrently. I think I definitely see the advantages of the rental search, and I think we should do that. But certainly in the interim, if a purchase opportunity came along, that we should consider that too. So I would just do 1 and 2 at the same time. And also I dig the idea of the pitch sheet and getting it out to the public, kind of like Michael was talking about. If we had that sort of pitch sheet floating around out there, that might get us to that unlisted, that unlisted property, or that property that hasn't hit the market yet.
I still haven't heard anything about budget. What are we looking at?
Oh, and I'm sorry, Dwayne. Thank you, and sorry to jump in again. But I hope maybe we could put off budget for one meeting. I guess I also envision this as being on the agenda, kind of for every meeting going forward. And so maybe we could sort of put our fly out on the water and see if we get any bites, and then that might also help us come up with a realistic, budget.
Steve?
Yeah, and just a reminder, I know I brought it up last time, but April going into May is traditionally a a great rental month. So to me, I'm just I'm with you, Nicholas, equally weighing both of those as having immense value. We've got to find a solution for our immediate problem with our current town manager. And then I think we also need to be looking at that purchasing for future town staff in general, starting with town management and moving backwards. Knowing that Homestead, when it is completed to perfection, will be the end goal for town. Oh, and also, Michael, I've received 3 of those letters in the last year. 2 of them were cash offers with no inspection.
So you didn't take them, huh?
Where am I going to go? You know?
Okay, and I don't know if you saw in the chat that Carlos posted a 3-bedroom at just under 1,800, of which the 334 square feet of that is the garage. So it's really more like, 14, between 14 and 1,500 plus a garage.
I think that you're subtracting instead of adding.
No, I said 1,400 to 1,500.
Oh, okay.
Of living space, correct, not
Yeah.
including the garage.
Okay, I will get with Dwayne and we will start, figuring out how we're gonna tackle this. And if y'all have any comments, thoughts, ideas, if y'all hear anything, get in touch with one of us. And, we'll move forward and see what we can find and get a report, report something back to you, of what we've learned, by the next meeting.
Mayor Janet, just throw out there too. I know there's some realtors that actually live in Mount Crested Butte. So just a thought.
Yeah, no, I had that thought too of using someone who actually lived here, but I realized, the property managers are are probably more down in town and all over the place. So, talking to them, I mean, my mind is that we try and contact all of them and ask them if they've got anything and to be looking out for anything for us. And, but realtors be looking more at someone from Mount Crested Butte does seem appropriate.
My guy is.
Okay. Okay, Steve?
Dwayne, you already got your 1% lined up over there? What's going on here? The one thing I was thinking, I just didn't, sorry to go back. Carlos, what was the context for your chat post there?
You were just asking, just confirming the size comp.
The
for
Homestead.
Yeah.
Copy, thank you.
Okay. And yeah, we can probably work out doing an ad in the paper saying we're looking for something as well. I don't know what the pricing of doing something like that is and where budgeting would come from for doing it, but we can
Oh, we
figure
could
that
probably
out.
scrounge that up.
Oh, I bet Kendra can get us a discount.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, guys. Next is reports, discussion items and announcements, town managers report and discussion items. Carlos, do you have anything to share that? Y'all keep moving around, and so I have to keep looking for where y'all are.
Yeah, with ICE's absence, of course, there was no manager's report in your packet. And, the one thing I was gonna update on was the internet assessment, and you guys stole my thunder a little bit earlier. So nothing, we will have that report, as Tiffany said, at the next meeting. Other than that, nothing to add.
Okay, she is back at work, at least for some hours.
Yeah, she was back yesterday.
Okay. Okay, clerk's report. Tiffany, do you have something?
I do not.
Okay, town council reports. I don't have anything to add to my lengthy report. Sorry it was so long. It was a busy couple weeks for me. If y'all have any questions, happy to answer. Are there any other town council reports? Oh, I've seen Nicholas's hand. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Janet, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you for the thorough report. It was good to get updates on all that stuff. So thanks for putting the time in on doing a good report. And then as far as my town council report, last week, Thursday and Friday, I attended the CML legislative workshop and then also the policy committee meeting on Friday. And so I'm waiting on, they're kind enough to do some notes for those meetings. And so I'm waiting on some of those, thought they would be better than what I could put together from memory. And so I'll have a report on that next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, because I had a couple that I wrote direct to you that I didn't agree with their recommendations. So I'm curious to hear what happened.
Yep, for sure. I'll update you on that.
Okay. Steve.
Just really quick, there's an update. We had reported that the Mustang was going to be moving and starting in up on the mountain at 5 a.m. with pickups that would now run to Denver. They changed that, and that's now going to be starting at the 4-way in CB at 5:15. So people up here will still need to find a way to get down there prior to bus service starting. So it doesn't help us much. Yeah, I know. I just found out about that today. We didn't get a board.
I was going to say, how did you find that out? I didn't know that.
Got inside sources.
Okay.
That was pretty much it. Oh, and then I attended the Blister Summit last weekend. I think some of you maybe went to the session A. But as a snowboarder, I was even really impressed with the ski summit. I talked with tons of people. I had some ski patroller friends that came in town. It seems like it built a ton of credibility and steam this year. So I'm hoping that continues, and I think it will.
Yeah, the feedback from, the A session was really positive and really good. And the vendors all are like, we're so in for this, and
So
all those vendors, none of them went to the thing in Denver like they used to do that was in January, and they waited to come to this and said, this is the way of the future, this is what we're doing from now on. So he started a good thing here, and hopefully it'll continue to grow. But we'll hear more about that when he comes and gives his report. Nicholas, did you have your hand up again?
No, I was just, no, thank you.
Are there any other council reports, Michael?
Yeah, briefly, Region 10, we met last Thursday, I believe it was Thursday. A little bit of bad news on the internet front. The grant we're trying to get doesn't look like we're going to get it. So the Region 10 internet, or the Region 10 person in charge of the internet connectivity stuff, Corey Brindle, I think some of you know, who lives in CB South, he's coming up with a plan B. I expressed the disappointment in not getting that, and the fact that most of Mount CB doesn't have fiber. Most of Mount CB is maxed out as far as internet service. We just don't have the options as Gunnison and even Crested Butte has. And in particular at the town hall. So we've asked Corey Brindle from Region 10 to kind of look at what the possibility is of getting a plan B for us until we get additional funding for the middle mile all the way up here. So he's going to check in on that and hopefully have an update at our next meeting. A good thing that happened from an internet point of view is the redundant cable coming for is in service now, coming over Cottonwood. So if ever it's cut again in Montrose or south of Gunnison, we have redundancy coming over Cottonwood, so we shouldn't ever be in the dark again like we were last year or a couple of years ago, right, for several hours. Interesting to note that the redundant line actually goes up over Cottonwood, then goes all the way down to Levita Pass, hits 25, then goes back up to Denver. not exactly the most direct route to Denver, but yeah, that's the route it takes. I just find that interesting. So that's it.
Well, thank you for sticking up for us and trying to remind them that Mount Crested Butte's a different situation from Crested Butte.
I just had a quick add too. I wanted to remind Michael that consciousness is just a creation of the mind. As you go into your ayahuasca journey, where you New Mexico, as you enter the journey, just keep that in mind. And Titans are up 1-0 after one period, or down 1-0 after one period.
Oh, okay. Are there any other council reports or comments? I'd like to thank Alec for coming and listening again. Appreciate your, looking forward to being with us and doing your homework already. So look forward to having you on board, even though we lose Lauren. Looking forward to having you on board in April. Okay, if that's it.
Nicholas, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Third, fourth.
Take your pick, Tiffany. You got a bunch. All right, thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.